And I'm sitting there, and then I get this message. It's not like I heard anything. It's like somebody's talking to me, but there's no delay. This was a direct message into my brain. It was, I love you, your sins are forgiven.
Hello and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nuske. I'm your host. I love hosting this show. I love supporting the community behind the show. I love my guests. I love what we talk about. And if you've been supporting the show for any length of time, thank you so very much for that support. As I always like to say, it always makes a difference for me knowing how much the show is making a difference for you. Now, on today's show, I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming author Paul Joel to talk about his new book called A Man Like You and Me, a supernatural adventure story. We're going to be learning what inspired Paul to become an author. We're going to also take a bit of a deep dive into the creative process Paul followed when writing his book. So with all that being said, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful to have you here. Now, what we do, Paul, is we have a few moments of time to learn a little bit about you. So tell us where you're calling in from today.
Well, I'm calling in from Loudonville, New York. I'm from New York. I grew up, I was born in New Jersey, but grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Always a Brooklyn boy.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, what do you love about the place where you're living now?
Well, it's great. I'm near my wife's relatives, and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
great.
Yeah, fantastic.
I don't have a lot of relatives on my side of the family, so I'm very happy to basically incorporate the relatives from her side.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Now, tell us a little bit about Brooklyn, New York, and what can you remember growing up there, and what's a major landmark that people should know if they don't?
Well, the major landmark when I was a kid was Ebbets Field.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Dodgers left. Okay,
Yeah.
they went to California. Okay?
Yeah.
It was like a travesty of whatever. There's nice parks. There's Prospect Park. I lived across the street in an apartment building from Prospect Park when I was in first and second grade, it's a wonderful place. I mean, if it was an independent city, it would be the fourth largest populated city in the United States.
Yeah, wow.
So there's a lot of people there. Okay, there's 2.6 million people in Brooklyn by itself. Okay.
Yeah.
It has a great library system. It has Kings County Hospital, where I did my internship and residency.
Oh, yes.
Now get this, okay? The tunnel system connecting the various buildings in Kings County Hospital, is the second largest tunnel system in New York City after the subway.
Oh, goodness me.
The largest place is, okay?
Yeah.
And it had a main building that had the emergency room and medical wards and surgical wards. That was like the size of a city block. But then it had a separate building, E-building, for pulmonary. And I basically learned to love pulmonary there because the head of pulmonary division there was Dr. Howard Lyons, this man, a genius.
Yep.
And they also had the K building for the inpatient psychiatric people. And if you want to have a moment of terror, try doing a medical consult in the middle of the night in that building. And the first thing is it's locked up. So
yeah,
the first thing I'd worry about is, am I going to get out of here? I'm one of the patients here and never let me out. Okay? And having been told that I'm crazy many times in my life, it was something that would cross my mind.
I thought I was the only one, Paul.
No. You're in a long line. The craziest thing I ever did was try to play professional football. I played in this two-hand touch league on cement, and thought, well, I knew how to catch a football. I had a talent there.
Yep.
So I lifted weights for 2 years, went from 160 pounds to 215 pounds, and tried out for the Bridgeport Jets, the farm team of the New York Jets.
Yep.
And it was a little bit comical because I didn't know how to put the equipment on. Okay. And I picked out a helmet that was a lineman's helmet with a full cage. Okay.
Yeah.
And the equipment manager said, obviously you're not a lineman, you're not big enough. You got the wrong helmet. I said, no, this is the helmet I want. I want all these features to remain where they are, But then I had trouble figuring out how to put the cup on, which is
something
very
else.
Very, very embarrassing. I knew how the jock strap worked, but the other thing is, how do I do that without choking my leg?
It's a process.
It's a process, especially I never saw one of those things. Okay, so, and then I was, there was about 200 people to try out, and I was one of the 20 selected, and then I was in the training camp and getting the equipment and everything else, and I was there for 3 weeks doing really well, and then I hurt my knee, and
that was it.
Well, what happened is it would subluxate, not dislocate, but subluxate. I would run down the field, plant it, and then I'd be on the floor untouched. And the coach said, "Hey, you would have made this team. Get your knee fixed." So
Yeah.
I went to medical school that year. I had already been accepted, and then I did the surgery the next year. And unfortunately, I wake up from the surgery and complained the cast is too tight, and the orthopedist said, "Well, it's got to be snug." And the next thing, I woke up in the middle of the night. An orthopedic resident saw it open, and my foot was paralyzed and numb and whatever. And I was on crutches for the rest of the school year. So in a way, it was terrible because I couldn't play football, and I also couldn't be an orthopedist for a football team, which is one
No.
of the things I was thinking about. But it made me a much better physician. I listen. A patient could come in and have 25 complaints, and maybe 3 of them are legitimate.
Yep.
I listen to all 25. Okay, and
Yeah.
I've never had a malpractice suit. Never had a problem with that. It's made me a much better physician. So God was helping me, even though I didn't realize God existed. And I never believed in God, okay, because my parents were Polish Jews, and everyone in my mother's family was murdered by the Nazis. Same with my father. And my mother was like 5 or 6 years old, and they didn't send anyone to a concentration camp. They just took care of business right there. They tied up everybody else, and it was probably a very big house because she had 3 sisters who were married. And get this, the nieces and nephews were older than she was, okay, so she was really not playing there. And first they tied everybody up, then they killed the children, then they raped the women, and they killed them. And
Yeah,
eventually,
wow. I think, that's something we can certainly talk a little bit about as we progress through the call. But before we jump into more of the core of your book and what's happening there and how that all came about, tell me as you were growing up, I often think about the people you've just sort of touched on, some of the people that were in your life, but who was in your life? Were there any people in your life, Paul, that were a big influence for you, a positive influence for you?
oh, the greatest person was Mr. Frank Tandler. My parents worked multiple jobs, and there's no daycare. So what do you do with a kid? So in first grade, I'm first, second, and third grade, and fourth grade actually, I'm in yeshiva. Okay,
Yep.
yeshiva is for Jewish boys, and it's from 8 in the morning to 5 at night. Okay, in the morning you learn how to read Hebrew, write Hebrew, learn about the Old Testament, Jewish history. In the afternoon, somebody comes in and teaches you what you've learned in public school, reading, writing, arithmetic, whatever. And again, going back to when I was 3, I wasn't talking then, and I didn't have a pediatrician then.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of my parents said, "Hey, it's not normal. The kid should be able to talk. What's you need to see a pediatrician." So again, I had 2 things going for me. I had this great memory and this great immune system. And so here I am 71 years ago, and I was seen by a female pediatrician who sent me to a male pediatric neurologist, and my parents were very worried that I was retarded. And after examining me, he said, this is a direct quote from 71 years ago, okay?
Yep.
No, he's not retarded. No, he's not retarded. He's aware of his environment. He's just slow. He's very slow, but he'll learn to talk. Like basically, he's dumb as a box of rocks, but he's not retarded. That was the upshot of this. Okay.
Okay.
So then when I'm in yeshiva, I'm getting D's. I'm the worst student in every subject. Okay, and it's not like my parents were running up saying, "What's the matter here?" They already told me he's dumb. Okay, so this went on for first grade and second grade, and then we moved to a different part of Brooklyn. Now it was worse because instead of walking a few blocks, I had to walk 4 blocks, take the Remsen Avenue bus to 6 miles, walk another block to Yeshiva Rabbi David Leibowitz. Okay, and new kids, new school, same result, the dumbest kid, and I was very frustrated. It's amazing I turned into some kind of mass murderer. And then towards the end of third grade, Mr. Frank Tandler, who's the person who taught me the public school part in the afternoon, said, "You need to see me after class." And I was worried because I wasn't going to get an award for being dumb, okay? And he said, "Look, I don't know what's going on with you, but when I call on you in class, you seem to have some idea what's happening. But when you take these tests, you're the worst student I've ever had in my entire career. Don't you study for the test?" So I told him a story about when I was 3 and I'm dumb. And I don't get home till 6, and there's Hebrew homework when there's a test to do. I barely have enough time to do that. Get something to eat, clean up, do the Hebrew homework, get my sandwich ready for the next day. And why should I waste my time studying? I'm done. And he said, "You're not dumb, and study for the test." So about 2 weeks later, he announces in the class, "There's a test." And he looks at me and says, "And you understand English, or is English a second language for you? I don't want to hear about your schedule. Study for the test. You understand English?" Okay, and everyone looked at me because all those kids were like me. They were children of immigrants, And my father had a tough time with English. Okay, he'd say Wednesday.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So I studied for the test and got an A, and my whole life changed. And
Wow.
then I got A's in everything. And here's the other part of it. Every one of those teachers in yeshiva had dark hair like me, and when I get the answer wrong, I got smacked with a ruler over my hands. I got little scars on the tops of my hands from getting beaten by these people. And then, so I finally talked my way into public school because I heard, hey, if you take this test in sixth grade and you do really well, you go from seventh grade to ninth grade, you skip eighth grade.
You skip
That's
grade.
progress.
That's all
And
right.
for me, having one less year of school was like winning the lottery. Like, what's possible better? So I talk my way into public school. It's already a win because it's 9 to 3, not 8 to 5. And the first teacher I have is a female teacher, and of course I remember her name, but I think we'll keep her name out of this. Also with dark hair, okay. And she hated all the boys. She was some kind of pervert. And I get the answer wrong. I'm in, fourth, fifth grade, whatever the hell. I'm 10 years old, and she's saying, "This is a direct quote. Listen, you have to stop thinking with your penis and start using your brain for a change."
Oh, what?
I was like mortified, okay? It wasn't just me, it was all the boys, okay? And finally, I got into the smartest sixth grade, and I had Miss Hammer, who was a blonde. And for the first time, nobody was beating me, nobody was embarrassing me. It was like normal school. And I think in the back of my head, I was already like pre-programmed,
Mm.
that blonde is wholesome, blonde is good, blonde
It's all the
is a
good
good thing.
things. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now fast forward, I have this great memory, okay, and I had this genius, Dr. Howard Lyons, in charge of pulmonary at Kings County Hospital, and he did things differently. Normally, the underling reads the note of the patient that was admitted. So there's a whole hierarchy. The lowest is the intern, the resident, the
Yep.
fellow, and the attending, whatever it is. So you'd have 3 or 4 admissions, you'd be up all night, and then morning report would come the next morning, and he would take the charts. One of his mottos was, if you know the patient, you don't need the chart. Okay? And none of the other doctors could do that. They kind of cheat and say, well, the labs are all normal except for this, this, and this. But I gave them everything. The metabolic panel with the 16 numbers, the urine analysis, the CBC, the history of at least 3 or 4 patients. And because of his letter of reference, I got to do a pulmonary fellowship at Mass General, Harvard.
Oh, wow.
So I'm there the first day on the ward, and there's 8 patients throughout the hospital. So thinking, I'm expected to memorize this. I mean, they expect me to do that at Downstate Medical Center, Kings County.
That was the standard, wasn't it?
You're right. That was a standard, only with Dr. Lyons, and he's in charge of pulmonary. And this guy was a genius. Okay,
Yeah.
Here's how much of a genius this guy was. Okay, he's pulmonary, he's lung disease, not OBGYN. With his superhuman powers of observation, he thought that women who were menstruating were breathing differently during their estrogen or progesterone part of the cycle. So he brought in a whole slew of women and proved that, they're breathing more during the progesterone part of their cycle. Then he took these patients who had central sleep apnea. You probably heard of obstructive sleep apnea and overweight people treated with CPAP. Well, central
Yes.
sleep apnea is much worse
Yep.
because you have no signal to breathe. So you have to have a tracheostomy tube and be connected to a ventilator at night or you're dead.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was always a mess because the patients would move in their sleep, the hole in the neck would get bigger, get infected. It wasn't even a simple thing like that. Anyway, so he took all those patients with central sleep apnea and gave them a pill of progesterone to take every day, and voila, they're cured. No more tracheostomy, no more ventilator.
Nothing.
That's it. Nothing. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
people have won the Nobel Prize in medicine for less than that. Okay. So that's how much of a genius he was. Anyway, so I'm on the wards now, and there's 8 patients on the pulmonary service at Mass General, Harvard. And so thinking I'm supposed to memorize this, I get there 2 hours beforehand, memorize everything on those patients, sharp, which is a pretty good memory. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a photographic memory, but it's pretty amazing. And I never realized that I had any special memory until I lost it and got sick later on.
Well, that's funny because I think that might be a good segue if we can jump to that, because I think for the sake of context, Paul, I know that you suffered, please excuse me if I don't pronounce this correctly, Hashimoto's encephalitis?
That's it.
Is that what this was about?
Yes. And again, when I studied for the internal medicine boards, you have to know about, if you want to pass the first time like I do, you have to know about unusual presentations of common diseases.
Yep.
So thyroid disease is very common. Something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis is uncommon. And the 2 tests are positive, antithyroid globulin and antithyroid peroxidase. That's how you make the diagnosis. So I heard the term, but Hashimoto's encephalitis is very rare. Fewer than 500 people in the history of the world have had it.
Mm.
And it's listed in the NORD, National Organization for Rare Diseases listings. And so I'm driving to work on March 25th, 2019 to see patients in the office. And suddenly I don't know how to drive the car or use a cell phone. I'm like clueless.
What's going
So I
on?
stop the car, and the policeman calls my wife, fortunately, and I get admitted with this diagnosis. The MRI of my brain lit up like a Christmas tree. I'd say 90% of my long-term memory was wiped away. All of my
Goodness
short-term
me.
memory was wiped away, okay? And basically, from this great memory, I'm now like a moron. And if you've seen anybody who's had a traumatic brain injury, not only is the patient sick, but the spouse is also incredibly affected by this, okay?
Of
It's like a
course.
new person, okay? And so I was treated with chemotherapy at 3 times the FDA-approved dose, steroids, anti-seizure medicines for 2 years, and nothing changed. So they stopped the medicine, and I was a moron. And again, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm some kind of hero here, because at one point I called a priest that I knew. Again, I was homebound. Haven't driven a car since March 25th, 2019.
Yeah.
And I asked the priest, look, I don't want to go to hell for committing suicide, but this is kind of ridiculous. I have
Pretty
no
hard to
brain.
deal with.
I have no brain, and I also have this peripheral neuropathy where my fingers don't work, my feet are numb, which I still have, by the way. My balance
Yeah.
is off. I fell down a flight of stairs a couple of months ago and broke my wrist. And this way my wife could marry somebody else also, okay, and not be stuck with me. And he said, God will understand. That's fine, go for it. And I would have done that, but one of the doctors who took care of me said, did you tell him about the book? And I said, no, why would I do that? He said, well, if you really think in the book, and you're the person in the book, and in real life you're supposed to get the Pope in unison with the bishops to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in this church in Moscow, otherwise there'll be a nuclear holocaust. Well, you can't quit. You can't say no to God. It's not like, okay, you've been assigned that, and it's like Noah's being told to build the ark, and Noah says to God, find somebody else. I'm not building it, okay? It's not going to go well for Noah, okay? So that's the only reason I'm still alive.
Yeah,
Okay, so
wow. Can I ask you then, Paul? I don't understand where that message came from. Where did this idea for the book came from? Clearly, it was sent to you.
It came from me because it's real events. Okay, again, I never believed in God, and when I asked my wife to marry me,
Yeah.
she said, "Well, I'll marry you." She's very religious. Okay, in the book, she's not. That's a little bit of a switch.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, and she said, "I'll marry you if you get baptized." And I was honest. I said, "I don't believe in God." He says, "That's okay. We baptize infants. Nobody's going to ask you anything." So I said, "Okay." Somebody poured some water on my head, and I get to marry the woman of my dreams. It's the deal of the century. So I was baptized on November 4th, 1981. We were married in January 24th, 1982.
Yep.
But really didn't have time for a honeymoon. So this was the honeymoon. This 6-week tour of Europe on a Euro pass.
Ah, righto.
And she's there. Okay,
Yeah.
In the book, she's not there. So we're in Germany of all places. Okay, and
Yep.
again, one of the take-home messages is don't hate people. Okay, so we're in Germany to see this beautiful castle in Neuschwanstein, built by Ludwig II in the 1800s, before Nazis, okay?
Is that
And
the images you've got on your website?
that's one of the images. That's the
Ah,
beautiful
got
castle.
it. Okay,
All right?
continue. Yes.
Right. So we're on the bus, and the bus stops in the middle of nowhere at a coffee shop, which obviously paid the bus company to stop. And everyone, including my wife, gets off the bus and goes to the coffee shop. But I didn't feel like eating or drinking, and I didn't have to use the restroom. And across the street is this church. And
Yep.
I didn't know the story of it. It's called Tears Church, Wieskirche. And the story was there was a stick figure of Jesus being scourged that they used to use in the Good Friday procession. But everyone agreed it was ugly, so they tossed it in the barn for a couple of decades until somebody realized there were actual tears coming from the eyes of Jesus in this thing. So they put that on the altar and they built this church there, okay? And so I walk in there, and it's beautiful. The ceilings and the walls are gorgeous, but your eye is drawn to this ugly thing. And I'm sitting there, and then I get this message. It's not like I heard anything. It's like there's somebody's talking to me, but there's no delay. Like when I talk to you, there's a millisecond delay of what I'm saying. Your brain is trying to interpret what I'm saying. This was a direct message into my brain. It was, I love you, your sins are forgiven. Okay?
Oh, wow.
And then I was converted, a little bit like St. Paul on the way to Damascus, on the road to Damascus. Immediately I was converted. And I was really happy, okay? And my wife saw that something's going on. And our plan was to sleep on the train at night to go to Vienna. This way I don't have to pay for a hotel room for that night. And so as we're checking out of this very inexpensive place, I say to my wife, let's celebrate. Let's find a nice place to eat here. We can take the next train over Europe. It's not like we have a ticket to a specific train.
Uh-huh.
So I asked the clerk there, what's one of the nicest places to eat? And he said, probably the Four Seasons restaurant in the Four Seasons Hotel. So I said to my wife, let's go there. And he said, you can't get in there. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it's a Friday night. Apparently October 15th, 1982 is a Friday. It's a small restaurant. You need a reservation, and you're not dressed appropriately. You have jeans, and he didn't say sneakers, and running shoes, and backpacks. And you need a suit, and she needs a gown. You'll never get in there. So I said to myself, of course I'm getting in there. I mean, if the creator of the universe just communicated with me, and I want to celebrate that, of course he's going to take care of it. We're going to get in there. So we run down there, and there's a doorman with a top hat and everything else, and he asked, ask him where the restaurant is on the second floor. And then before we walk in there, he says, let me take your backpacks. I'll give them to you on the way out. Basically, we don't allow people dressed like you with backpacks in our lobby, let alone eat here, okay? So I go upstairs, and everyone is, the waiters, the piano player, in tuxedos, the guests are in gowns and whatever the heck it is, and suits. And he asked me my name, so I give him my name. And there's one table empty, and there's a reserve sign on it. He takes the reserve sign off. And my wife said she saw our last name on it. I didn't see that.
Oh,
okay. We have this great meal, and the piano player is playing the song. And so I asked him, the waiter, do you know the lyrics? He said, yeah, it's called A Man Like You and Me, which is where the part of the title of the book comes from.
Of course.
And the lyric is that it doesn't matter whether you're a king or you're rich, we're all slaves to our fate. We're all equal in this world. And again, the book is about free will and things that, that happen, and fate, okay? And how that interplays. Like a perfect example is if you read the Old Testament, there's a story of Abraham and Isaac, okay? Abraham is told, I want you to sacrifice your son, your only son, okay? And so he builds a place to sacrifice it, and he ties up Isaac, who asked, by the way, where's the animal we're sacrificing? And, turns out he's the animal we're sacrificing. Okay?
Thanks for coming.
Right. And as Abraham's about to lift up his knife to kill him, God says, hold off, you passed the test. Okay, it's like a test of faith. But it wasn't a test for him because God knows the future. So he knew what Abraham was going to do. But it's more like a take-home message for us. We need to keep our faith even when things are terrible, okay, and it doesn't make sense. So that's part of this. So again, I never believed in God until I walked into this Tears Church, and suddenly, I was converted. And then, unfortunately or fortunately, when you have these supernatural events, there's always a match to it, so you're not going crazy. So the next day, we sleep on the train, we arrive in Vienna, check in the hotel, and it's nighttime now, and we're hungry. So I look in the guidebook, and there's a restaurant near St. Stephen's Cathedral. And it's the big cathedral in Vienna, and there's a law there. You can't have a building higher than that, so you can see the steeple from everywhere. I don't have to ask directions.
Yep. So
go there, and I open the door. It's a glass door with a wooden frame. And wait, one last thing. The night before that, my wife writes this list, which is in the book, okay? She writes a list of St. Bridget, Paul, Stephen, Marcus, 4 founders. Doesn't make a lot of sense, okay?
Yep.
But St. Bridget's was in there, okay? Anyway, so I opened the door to walk in there. And there's a light on the second floor where the restaurant's supposed to be, but it's a dim light. And I look up and I see a Christmas tree for about 5 seconds. That disappears. Then I see an Easter candle for about 5 seconds and disappear. Then I see the face of Jesus, and he's not smiling or anything, and I'm terrified. So I run to the door to try to get out, and we're locked in. Okay. Now, again, I'm a pulmonary fellow who grew up in New York City. There's a law in every Western country since 1921. What happened in 1921? There was a fire in the Coconut Grove nightclub in Manhattan. And for whatever reason, the people couldn't get out. They were burnt alive. So there's a law in every one of these Western countries. You can lock the place when there's nobody there. You don't want people to rob you when it's closed. But if anyone can open the door, you can't lock them in. And I'm locked in. I can't open the door. And I tap on the window, and a nice man with dark hair tries to open the door that I could easily open before, and he can't. And now I'm really frightened and whatever. And then about 2 minutes later, a lady with blonde hair.
Oh, yes.
And I had a good look at her face because I'm standing at the door, okay? Opens the door and lets us out, okay? And I remember saying to my wife, I don't care where we're going. I don't care what the restaurant is, what kind of food is. I need, whatever restaurant we're eating at, I need to be around people. I don't know what that was the Twilight Zone or what the heck that was. Okay?
Yep.
Anyway, the next day I buy this Book of Saints. and I look at July 23rd, which is the feast day of St. Bridget of Sweden, and there's the face of the lady who opened the door. So
Oh, no way.
she may have been born in 1400 and died in 1473, but on October 16th, 1982, she was there in Vienna opening the door for us. Okay?
That's amazing, isn't it?
Right. Well, so this is why I believe. Okay, this is this is why I believe in God. And again, I'm not comparing myself to the perfection of the Blessed Virgin Mary, but even in the Annunciation, when she's told you're going to have Jesus as a son, and she says, "Well, how can this be? Because I don't have nothing to do with man." And he says, the angel says to her, "Well, your cousin Elizabeth, who was considered barren, is already pregnant. She's in her 6th month. Okay, and all things are possible with God." And that's the simple message. All things are possible with God. So, of course, the next that's the first mystery of the Rosary. The second is the visitation, and she visits her cousin Elizabeth, and with the Holy Spirit, Elizabeth says, "How is it that the mother of my Lord has come to visit me?" Okay, so again, I'm not comparing myself to anyone else,
No.
but this idea of there's some kind of supernatural thing that's very hard to believe, and you need some kind of sign that you're not crazy. Okay,
No.
that's just real. Okay, and so I've had a lot of those, and again, the book has the cover of the book has the writings of St. Paul, the definition of love.
Yeah.
From 1 Corinthians, because basically, without love, life is meaningless. And the back of the book has a baseball batter. Okay, why? Because the baseball batter, it's the national pastime in the United States, even though football is more popular.
Yep.
The baseball batter comes to the plate hoping for a hit, and more times than not, he gets an out. And so the idea is we're all sinners, we all sin, and the question is, what do you do afterwards? You got to keep trying. Okay, he's got to get up the next time and try anyway, and try to get a hit the next time. Okay, there's a next time.
Got to keep swinging the bat.
You keep swinging. You got to keep at it. So that's the kind of
the gist of the book.
Well, that's the gist of the book. And the other thing is, again, in the book and in real life, I'm supposed to get the Pope and the bishops to do the consecration as requested by Our Lady of Fatima in 1917. She came and she had various different visits with the 3 shepherd children. And the last visit was October 13th, 1917, when she said, "I'm Mary, not some lady in heaven." And he was to go to the Pope and have him consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart with the bishops. And 2 popes have actually consecrated Russia to her Immaculate Heart, but never as requested with the bishops. So in the book and in real life, I feel I'm tasked with getting this done. And when I wrote the book in 1988, I was told that it's supposed to be done in a church in Moscow. Okay, you would think it would be done in the Vatican because the bishops meet with the Pope 3 or 4 times a year at the Vatican. It would be too simple to just get it done there. Okay,
yep.
But no. And then as I'm editing the book and as more of these supernatural events occurred, I'm told the name of the church. It's supposed to be the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Moscow. That's the name of the church. It's supposed to be. So again, and the person in the book is supposed to get this done, okay? And the beautiful blonde, Mary Beth, works for the CIA, and she's supposed to make sure that I get there, okay? And that's her task, okay? Her task, she's had a wonderful career. This is her last assignment. She just has to get this idiot there, and she hates me. Okay? and in the book, she doesn't believe in God, and I do, but that's obviously not the case. That's,
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and in real life, on October 13th, 1982, we're on a train in Munich. This really happened, okay? And I'm behind her. We're standing in the aisle. It's packed. And about 10, 15 feet in front of her with his back to the train car, ending of the train car, is this crazy man with a knife, okay? And they're screaming at him in German, which I didn't understand. And suddenly he bolts towards my wife, okay? And a normal reaction would be, I'll jump out of the way. She'll seize this. She's athletic. She's the perfect person. She's brilliant. She's gorgeous. She's athletic. She could have been a professional skier, okay?
All those things.
Everything, okay? But, she'll jump out of the way. But that's not what I did. I grabbed her by the shoulders and threw her on the lap of some guy on the left side, okay? And then I put my weight on her so she couldn't stand up. There's no way this guy could reach her, okay?
Yep.
And unfortunately, my whole side is open because I got my hand on her and I'm still in the aisle. Okay. And by the grace of God, as this guy ran past me, he had to move out of the way not to stab me. Okay. So he
Oh,
runs to the other car, and now the emergency is off, is finished. And I let her up, and here's St. Mary Beth. She didn't even say thank you. Like, this is the perfect human being. Okay. If you carried her groceries from the market to the car, she'd say thank you. Here I risk my life, and there's nothing. Okay. And for years, I would pray to God before I went to sleep, and I'd say, explain this to me. Like, how is this even possible? Then I got sick, okay, and then all this stuff was wiped out of my memory, and that's what happened to her. She didn't say thank you because immediately it was wiped out of her memory
it was gone.
by the opposite of God, okay? And when I try to explain this, she thinks I'm making up some kind of story, okay? It didn't happen, whatever that is, okay? Now,
Yep.
in the book, there's a little bit of humor there, okay? I make her look better. I make her look better in the book, okay? In the book, I put the scene in a bakery, and she sees the crazy guy with the knife, and again, her job is to make sure I'm safe, okay? And so she immediately tosses me away. So I'm lying in some kind of pile of rolls or something, okay? And she's ready to take this guy on, okay, to make sure
Yep.
I'm safe, okay? But from my view, it looks like he's about to stab her. So I run out of this position of safety, try to stop him. And in the process, in the book, okay, I get like a little bit of blood on my shirt, okay? And she starts screaming at me, like, what the hell is wrong with you? I did everything I could. This is a catastrophe. The people from the CIA are watching this. They're going to think I failed, okay? And, how could you be so stupid? And blah, 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 on and on and on.
On and on.
Right. And finally I said, well, because I love you, okay? And then, suddenly that, like, made a big difference, okay? And then I said, well, what are we going to do about this? And I said, well, let's sign into a hotel, okay? We'll get the shirt cleaned, okay? And nobody will know the difference. And then she says, they'll never think, the other people in the CIA, they'll never think that we're in a hotel room having sex, and I'm having sex with a pig like you. Okay, so I say, I say, well, look, it's the supernatural. You never know. So we sign into the hotel, okay? And she calls up from the hotel, and they buy it. They think, we're having sex. It's like, ridiculous.
We'll go with that.
A little bit of humor that's thrown in there.
Oh, I love it. Look, I tell you what, this is one of those situations where I guess, for lack of better ways to phrase it, it's like, real life meets art, and you've combined them into this wonderful book, and it's, reality versus this science fiction that you're talking about, this supernatural adventure that you're going on. And it's a real credit to you that you've put this book together. I just wonder, are you intending to write any other books like this? Are your writing days done?
Well, again, I have one of my doctors who basically saved my life. Okay, this person read the book, and basically when I was going to stop eating and drinking, she said, and she's very blunt. You're going to go straight to hell if you tell them about the book. If this is what you think. Okay, so. I'm very close to her. She knows me like better than anyone, basically.
Yep.
At this point. And she says, "Well, we need to write the next book about what happened with Hashimoto's encephalitis." And basically, it's a sitcom. You have no freaking memory, okay, and you still have the peripheral neuropathy, and that's a book, okay.
There's a book there.
There's a book there, okay? I mean, first of all, it's a rare disease, so you're talking about somebody with a rare disease. You're talking about somebody who had a miracle in their life, okay?
Yep.
Again, but again, here's the other thing. So I get admitted to the hospital on March 25th, 2019. I'm out of my mind, okay? I get discharged on May 2nd, okay? So I'm in the hospital all that time. May 2nd is the birthday of my brother-in-law, who I'm very close to. He's like the brother I never had, okay?
Yep.
And the day that I had the miracle where my memory came back, April 29, 2022, is his wife's birthday.
Oh.
Right.
Coincidental.
And, right. It's I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
Okay? And again, he doesn't believe in God at this point. Okay. I say you're going to believe. Okay. It's going to happen. Okay. You're going to you're going to be there. Okay.
Good things are happening.
Right, good things are happening. And again, in the book that I wrote, originally it was written in 1988, I already had James, my oldest son, and Paul, my second son. And so the character is James Paul. It's the name of my character. Okay. But at the end of the epilogue, I marry the beautiful blonde, okay, and we have 4 sons in order: James, Paul, Peter, and John. Okay,
Yep.
so I've been waiting for Peter and John, but I'm 74 years old, and my wife is 68, so it doesn't. It would take a miracle, okay? All right, but again, we're always arguing, okay? So we're sitting at this. Go back to October 15th, 1982. We're in the restaurant at the Four Seasons Hotel, and we're at dinner, and she has a map. She opens up a map of Munich that they give out at the train station if you're a tourist, if you want to, the sites. And there's a spot. One of the nice sites is the Wittelsbach Fountain. The Wittelsbach family from Sweden. Okay, there we go. Ran Bavaria for 600 years. So there's this beautiful fountain there. You can look it up.
Yep.
And when she folded it a certain way, it looked like there's a J on there. So somehow we both knew that that's the name of our first child and it was going to be a male. So we're running, at the end of dinner, we're running to this fountain, okay? And she says, it's James. It means James. Our first child is going to be James, okay? And we weren't thinking of having children then. It wasn't like we were trying or anything like that. This is October 15th, 1982. James was born the end of November 1983. So it would be a long pregnancy if that was happening, okay? Now, so we get, and as we're running there, I say, well, what's wrong with John or Joseph? Those are good names. Okay. And she looks at me like I'm crazy. It's James. Okay. Obviously. So we're running to this fountain to see if there's anything with James or John or Joseph or whatever they have written there. And there's nothing written there, but there's an old man. And again, the fountain is beautiful, but it's in like a very narrow thing of a sidewalk in the circle of traffic. So here's some guy standing there in the middle of traffic at around 10:30 at night. And he looks at me and he says, my name is James. I've been waiting for you for a long time. It's about time you got here. And he turned around and left. Okay, and that's how James thinks.
That's crazy.
James thinks he was named after my mother-in-law's father. Dr.
I tell you,
okay.
I just have to interject here, Paul, because we could talk about this forever. I know you have so many wonderful stories to tell, but this is the very reason why I have a special spot on the My Future Business show for book authors, because you have an incredible story to tell. You've done so much in your life and you've achieved so much. And this wonderful woman in your life has gone from strength to strength with you. You've seen so many incredible things. And I know that there's more coming. But if people actually they decide that they need to read this book, a couple of things. Is it a quick read and where can they get it?
Slash off, it's a quick read. It's only 96 pages of text. Okay. Right. And they can get it on the website, http://pauljoelbook.com/. That's my website. And you can see it, some of the readings part of it, it'll introduce you to the book too. But it's also on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Kindle. You can buy it as a softcover, hardcover, or a Kindle, an ebook too.
Well, I tell you what, I'm hopeful that you do put the pen to paper again, Paul, because I know that I'm looking forward to learning more about Hashimoto's encephalitis and all the other wonderful stories that you have to share with the world, because I know that you are on a very special mission and I wish you all the very best. Now, if you are on today's call and you've listened into any part of this call and you're excited to learn more and you want to learn more, definitely go visit pauljoelbook.com. I'll be making sure that the links are made available to you below this interview. No matter where you see it, you're going to find the links back to the book and all of the work that Paul is doing. So with all that being said, Paul, thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business shows today.
Thank you so much for having me.